I'm Shehna Javeed. I'm an academic advisor and a learning strategist. I'm a lifelong learner.
Do you see people for who they are? Do you really see people for who they are? Do you like to help others? We all like to help those who look and sound like us. But are we genuinely willing to help those who are different from us? Do you see me for who I am? When I first walked on stage, what did you see first? My clothes? My brown skin? When I began to speak, you heard my Canadian accent. Did this give me greater legitimacy? Acceptance? I'm an academic advisor and a learning strategist, and I work with students every single day. I really love what I do because it allows me to help students to see their own potential. And today, I will tell you some of their stories. Let me tell you about a student I know who immigrated from India at the age of 10. She and her family were so excited for the new adventure. Shortly after settling in Cabbagetown, Toronto, she was registered in middle school. About a week into middle school, she was bullied for her orange sweater, a sweater that she loved, but after this day, she never wore it again. Teachers were warm and welcoming. They brought her winter boots, they applauded her English and math skills, and facilitated her learning of French. High school was different. Teenage years are all about fitting in and being cool. One day in her grade 10 geography class, when they were studying India, the teacher made a remark about how poor people might use the toilet. He was trying to be funny, and he said, "Oh, maybe they use soil to clean themselves." And he was looking at her. As the only South Asian in the class, she wanted to tell him that he was being disrespectful. She was embarrassed and wanted to leave the room. But she had the courage to do neither. She just sat there feeling mortified. That mortified teenager was me. That was the beginning of choosing invisibility. Hiding certain parts of me, blending in, not standing out. Choosing invisibility and also choosing silence. The intersectionality of my life involves my race, my gender, growing up in a Canadian culture, in a duality of culture, actually, friendships, family relationships that are influenced with being a Canadian within my Muslim faith and in the South Asian diaspora. I'm like that complicated latte at Starbucks, you know, the one that's so fashionable to order, but one that requires some expertise. Growing up, I was influenced by a creative, strong, high-achieving father who had a physical disability of the legs due to childhood polio. He had to use a wheelchair. My mother traveled 2 hours each way on the transit system to get to her place of work. A few years later, our grandmother came to live with us, and this complicated the family dynamics. I also have a brother who was trying to figure out life. This was the 1980s, the years of poofy hair, one long earring, big belts, iconic movies such as Pretty in Pink and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and I was the #1 fan of Duran Duran. Living at home, I had to do a lot of chores. I helped with a little bit of food preparation, vacuuming, laundry. Not only did I do errands inside the home, but I was also doing errands outside the house. Because both my parents were tied up with employment, trying to build a decent life. All of these experiences shape and influence who I am today. Losing childhood early, but growing up, learning about motivation, persistence, and perseverance. When I entered university, although both my parents were university educated, both of them with 2 degrees from overseas each, I felt that their advice was not appropriate to the Canadian context. And so I stopped asking, talking, sharing. I was going to do it all on my own. Now that I look back, I realized that there was one thing missing. I had no mentor. I had no one who could really see me for me, who could give me authentic, realistic advice, who I could talk to about my dreams and ideas, which slowly became silent. I wonder if some of these stories resonate with you today. Some of these threads of settlement stories, I think, are similar to some of the stories that our students have. Now, decades later, we talk about similar life experiences. I want to talk about the messiness of the everyday, but I also want to challenge us to do better, to see better. Many of our students are first in their family to attend post-secondary education. They are juggling personal responsibilities, family responsibilities, and academics. And sometimes they can meet with academic failure. While the conversations that happen in my office are confidential, today I would like to tell you 3 stories. These stories impress me, and I hope that they will resonate with you. Let me begin with my first student, Zara. Zara and I met when she had been academically suspended. This means that she is not permitted to take classes for a short period of time. It is an opportunity for her to reflect and reassess. Zara immigrated from India at the age of 11 with her family. She was 11 years old. She could speak no English at that time. Her family was so proud of her when she was admitted to this institution of higher learning. Zara was already not doing well in her first year, and then her mother got sick. Between hospital visits and examinations, she met with academic failure. My second student, Samia, she and I also met at the same juncture. She had just been academically suspended. Samia immigrated from Pakistan with her family at the age of 1 year old. Samia and her sister were first in her family to attend post-secondary education. Samia's first 2 years were overshadowed with her father's illness and multiple emergency room visits. My third student, Shanti, and that's her real picture. Shanti and I met when she was about to be removed from a highly sought-after business program. Shanti immigrated from Sri Lanka at about 1 year old. Shanti was often caught in the middle of her parents' marital discord, often caught in the middle of their arguments. And this was compounded when her mother got ill with a high-risk illness. Shanti was getting more and more depressed. Now, if we were to see Zara, Samia, and Shanti on a list with names and grades, we might think that perhaps these students did not work hard, or we might think that perhaps they don't have the skills to succeed at university. Do we see Zara, Samia, and Shanti for who they are? And how can we help? Based on my personal life experience and my professional learning, I'd like to share with you how I think we can help. Ask. Ask with respect, with authenticity, and ask because you care. Those who have been navigating invisibility all of their life will not come forward. They will not feel that their stories are worth telling or being respected. I did not come forward when I had struggles and frustrations. Who could possibly relate to my story? At the time, there were not very many South Asians in authority, let alone Muslim, and who had a father with a physical disability? How could they possibly relate to my story? When I first met Zara, she really was concerned about being judged. So when we're asking questions, it can take one moment to feel otherized. Feeling otherized can be like being under a magnifying glass. Imagine how overwhelming that can be, being under a magnifying glass. Being an object of curiosity is not a great feeling. So we need to remember that when we're asking, we ask because we care, not just because we're curious. Listen. Listen with empathy and listen from their perspective. Samia often walked into my office. Samia is a little bit taller than me, and she often walked into my office with what I call a Mona Lisa smile. Enigmatic and warm at the same time. But whenever she walked into my office, I also felt her resolve to change her academic condition. She was all in. Samia did tell me that her parents sacrificed a lot to be here and for this education, and there was no option to fail. And it is this that drove her determination to change her academic condition. As Samia and I met frequently, she would come in with ideas and next steps, and I would say to her that I felt like she was ready. She really didn't need me that much. And then she often said that she appreciated bouncing off her ideas, getting my feedback, edits, changes, and then she'd leave my office less anxious than when she came in. I listened from her perspective. Have faith. Have faith and let them know that they matter. Shanti was often caught in the middle of her parents' argument. And of course, as I already mentioned, her mother was also ill. This was getting her more and more depressed, and her academics were suffering. When I got to know Shanti a little bit better, I realized there were some things here that she needed to speak with a personal counselor about, and I made the referral to a personal counselor. But as I got to know her a little bit more, I realized that she just needed someone to have faith in her, to believe in her, to give her a space to talk and cry a little, and to have faith in her. Sometimes we just need an acknowledgement of our struggles, because the acknowledgement makes it visible. Shanti often would talk about her struggles, and then she would smile. Bearing witness to the struggles in the narrative is important, because the next step after this is to help craft an alternative narrative that resonates, that matters. Last, hope. Offer hope, because things can change, and they often do. I remember Zara when she first came into my office, and I remember the hope in her eyes when I said that this could change. We can change this. It would require some hard work and some care and attention from her. While family responsibilities can be a lot to handle for some, family can also be an amazing support, as they were for Zara. Vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity, innovation, and change, according to one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown. Where there's a valley, there's a hill to climb. Valleys are places of vulnerability, but valleys are also fertile. They're fertile ground for change. It allows a person in this space to consider their options and to consider next steps. Hope illuminates. makes visible that which is invisible. There are no shortcuts in higher education. Don't get me wrong. Academic rigor and high expectations are important for future leaders of tomorrow. But it is important to acknowledge the intersectional identities of our students. Zara, Samia, and Shanti all chose visibility. In choosing visibility and vulnerability, they regained their power, regained their prowess. I'm happy to report that through all of this messiness of the everyday, Zara, Samia, and Shanti have all graduated. One is in professional school, one is in a thriving career, and the third one is also working in a related field and looking at further education options. So next time you see someone struggling, consider what you will do. Will you ask? Will you listen? Will you have faith and offer hope? Silence is deep, like an abyss. Hope is an echo that reverberates, and faith is limitless. I'm mindful that I am now in a place where I get to advise and mentor others, and I take this privilege very seriously, because when I was a student, I did not ask for help. At its worst, I was lost. At its best, it slowed me down. It took me a long time to muster the courage to choose visibility. From that mortified grade 10 student in geography class, to a woman who chose to wear the hijab at age 39 as an important marker of her identity, I stand in front of you today, humbled that I know people like Zara, Samia, and Shanti who show me every single day that the ordinary is simply extraordinary if you just take the time to see people for who they are. Thank you.